This video is to provide some background about the wife of Bath and to refresh your memory about her since we met her a couple of weeks ago when we were reading the prologue. First of all, you might remember that the wife of Bath, pictured over here, is a very well-dressed woman. She is very skilled at sewing, and she takes pride in her appearance. Most of you who analyzed her character for your character chart said that she seemed pretty likable. She's chatty. She loves to laugh. She seems to be a very entertaining character. But she does kind of have some selfishness to her and a little bit of attitude. There's that part where it says that no one dared walk to the altar in front of her at church, and she got scornful and rude when people did that. So she does have a bit of an attitude. Perhaps the most interesting thing about the wife of Bath is the fact that she says she's been married 5 times and had other company in her youth. So this is a very experienced woman. And she, in fact, considers herself an expert in love. She says that she knows all the oldest dances, which a few of you interpreted as meaning she knows dances, but she was actually just referring to relationships and flirting and courting and that kind of thing as a dance. It was a metaphor. So, a question that many of you had in finding out that she had 5 husbands was about marriage in the Middle Ages. So here are some facts about marriage in the Middle Ages that you might find interesting. In the Middle Ages, women were able to get married as young as 12 and men as young as 14. The wife of Bath mentions that her first marriage was when she was 12 years old to a much older man. And we'll talk more about specifically her husbands on the next slide. Divorce, however, was not a common practice. Divorce could only be requested. It was really more an annulment, meaning that the marriage could be found to be illegal or invalid if it was determined that the man or woman was not old enough or that they had secretly married someone in their family. And that being rule makes me think that probably happens sometimes. If the man or woman was unable to have children or perform, then the marriage could be annulled because they weren't able to do what men and women are supposed to do. If the spouse had misrepresented themselves, lied about their age or their family or their income or anything like that, then they could have the marriage annulled. Or if the woman cheated on the man, then the man could annul the marriage for reasons of infidelity. And so what this tells us is that all of the wife of Bath's previous husbands died. She's not getting divorced and moving on to the next one like my aunt does. Not joking, she's on her 5th husband, just like the wife of Bath, and looking for her 6th, just like the wife of Bath. TMI, I know. So she is, all of her husbands have died, and that did leave her with a considerable amount of money. So specifically, in her longer version of the prologue, which is actually her prologue in the original Canterbury Tales is just as long as her story, if not a little longer. They only give us a very small part of it at the beginning of our story. But in that, she catalogs all her marriages and how they went. For her first 3 husbands, she basically just kind of clumps them all together and says they were all much older than her, and that she was the whip. She was in charge. She wore the pants in those marriages. And then with her 4th husband, he was actually about her age, and she was married to him for the longest. And so she tells a long story about that and about how he cheated on her. She kind of makes it sound like that wasn't that big a deal, but this is also, she turns around and cheats on him too, or at least flirts with other men to try to make him jealous. And so this kind of is a change in the way her marriages are. After her 4th husband dies, she meets her 5th husband at the 4th husband's funeral. He's one of the men who's carrying her husband's casket. And she meets him and actually falls in love with him. She no longer needs to marry for money. She has enough money from her previous 4 husbands that she marries this man, even though he's not that wealthy. But after being married to him for a while, he's not okay with her being the whip like she was in her other marriages. And he strikes her. He hits her. And she fights back. She like throws things at him, and it becomes this big physical fight, just one big physical fight from what it looks like in the text. And so then he kind of sees that she's his equal, and it kind of makes the marriage okay. But she's never as satisfied with that relationship as she was when she first got into it. And so now on her fourth husband died while she was on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. So now she's on a pilgrimage to Canterbury, and she's kind of talking like, hey, maybe this one will go this time, because she's already kind of looking for her sixth husband. All right. So now that concludes some background information that you would need to know about the wife of Bath. And I also want to make sure that before we start reading, you understand about literary allusions, because this is the primary literary device that you will see throughout the Wife of Bath's tale. An allusion, spelled with an A, is a reference to a person, place, or event. And so that's not to be confused with an illusion that starts with an I. That would be like an optical illusion or like a magic trick. An allusion, which you don't really say it that way, I'm just doing that for emphasis. An allusion is a reference to a person, place, or event. And most allusions come from mythology, like Greek or Roman mythology, any event in history, other works of literature, or the Bible. And the Wife of Bath includes a lot of these in her story. She talks about Ptolemy and some other Greek philosophers. She throws those in to make herself sound smart. Here's Ptolemy over here. She wants to make sure that the other pilgrims know how educated she is. And she mentions King Arthur. She sets her story in King Arthur's time, as you'll find out when you start reading in a minute. And so she mentions King Arthur and some things about him. She also tells a long story about King Midas, who is a mythological figure. And she does that in order to teach kind of a moral within her story. And then, of course, all of the pilgrims on the Canterbury Tales make allusion to the Bible frequently, because the church was very powerful in the Middle Ages, and the Bible was well known to all people in the Middle Ages. So now you are ready to read the Wife of Bath's tale. There is a short one-page intro of the frame story segment where she's arguing with the pardoner about marriage. He says, oh, I was going to get married, but now I'm not so sure, because this, remember, occurs at the end of her having told everybody about all 5 of her husbands. And so then she says, no, don't decide yet. I'm going to tell you a story that will teach you something that you need to know about marriage and about women. I'm going to teach you what women really want.